Hey guys, welcome to the first video of the new year, I think. Did I post a video on January 1st? No, I don't even know. I think it's the first video of the new year. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about all the books I read in December, which is only 4. I'm not gonna lie, it's not very many. And I DNF'd 3 other ones. So very, very quickly, this video won't be very long. Let's just get into it. The first book I read, by the way, I did not complete a book until like December 15th. So basically the first half of the month I read nothing because I was too busy DNFing books like nobody's business, which I'll show you in a minute. But the first book I did actually finish was, what's it even called? That shows you how memorable it was. The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Nobel. And I wound up giving this 3.5 stars. It is a middle grade. I thought it was going to be fantasy, but it's not. But it is set at a boarding school. So like in England, a lot of the characters had British accents in the audiobook. So that was kind of neat. But it was not very memorable, very forgettable. The plot was intriguing enough to make me keep going. But there is this mystery at the boarding school that is not very fleshed out. So that's why I thought I would continue with book 2. And then maybe I learn more. There's a secret society, the Society of the Blackstone Gate. They're very evil and bad. And some of the people even work, like one of the professors at the school is part of the society, which is kind of different from like maybe Hogwarts where most of the professors are good, which I mean, I guess they're pretty much all good. But I mean, even Snape was good, spoiler alert, which I knew from the beginning. I'm like, I was on this team that, you know, Snape was good. Anyway, so I continued on and I read book 2, The Secret of Whitestone Gate, and it was worse than the first one. So I will not be continuing. Apparently there are going to be more books in the series, but there's only 2 out right now. And I gave this book just 3 stars, and I honestly don't remember anything about it except that it was really short. Both these books were really short, and that's one reason why I read them, because I felt so guilty that I had read nothing else in the month of December. I'm not gonna lie. And I thought, you know what, these are 2 short books that I can get through in just a few hours each, because I think the audiobooks for like 5 and 6 hours for them. So, you know, I put it on double speed and finished them in no time, in just a couple of days. So those 2, and then I'm done with that series. The series is called the Black Hollow Lane series, by the way. Then we've got another 3.5 star read. I was a little disappointed in this book because this is actually the author that I have read the most from this year, which is surprising because this is not an author I would normally ever think I'd read from, but it was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my 4th book by her now. I've read Malibu Rising, which I actually surprisingly enjoyed. I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is my least favorite of the bunch, and that's not the one I'd recommend starting with if you're just now starting with Evelyn or with Taylor Jenkins Reid. And then I read Carrie Soto Is Back, which is still probably my favorite one. But Daisy Jones and the Six wasn't bad either. They're all good in like their own ways. They're all really different. It's hard to compare them. But Daisy Jones and the Six is about a fictional rock band, kind of a folkish kind of rock band, I think. They're very similar to apparently Fleetwood Mac. It's like based on Fleetwood Mac, and it's set in the 70s, so it's actually considered historical fiction as well. But the history element doesn't really factor into it. It's more about the band. And for some reason, I thought it was going to focus more just on Daisy Jones, but then I realized it was actually going to focus on some of the other band members as well. Mostly just Daisy though, and one other member named Billy. Those are the 2 that it really focuses on. And it does mention some about like kind of Billy's personal life as well, but I feel like it couldn't go super in depth into each character because it was talking about so many characters. I feel like it didn't do anything different than what I expected. Like the characters were addicted to drugs, you know, one guy was kind of, you know, over it and in rehab and had a family and was trying not to go back. 2 of the bandmates were having like a secret affair and trying to keep everybody from finding out. And that's pretty much it. Like there was really nothing exciting or special about it. And I think that's why I just gave it 3.5 stars, but it was fine. And I still like Taylor Jenkins Reid writing, her writing style, and I will probably still continue to read her books in the future. Oh, they're very accessible too. I think this is a good book for people that don't like, if you don't like fantasy or sci-fi or mystery or thrillers or horror, and you just want like straightforward fiction, all Taylor Jenkins Reid's books would probably be good for you. Now let's talk about the final book I read in the year 2022. I wish I'd ended with a bang, but it just sort of went out with a just sort of petered out, I suppose. And that was Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. I wanted to read something wintry and cold while I went to Gatlinburg in the mountains at Christmas time. And this was this really pretty sprayed edges Alcrate edition, or Lumicrate, Alcrate, one of them, I don't know, some edition of Lumicrate maybe, that came with a little note. It even came signed. And I got this used, by the way, for $5.75 apparently. It smells a little smoky is the only bad thing about it, but you know, it gives a little character. Woods, smoky, I don't know, kind of goes with it. Anyway, signed by Shay Earnshaw, super, super beautiful. Even the naked cover, of course, is super, super pretty. But the book is just all vibes and all atmosphere and no plot or characters really. I mean, there's a little bit of kind of magic in here as well. There's a little bit of mystery, but honestly, it's just vibes and atmosphere. I mean, you could read an entire page and get to the end of that page and be like, what actually happened? Nothing actually happened on this page. There's just words. They're just words written on this page, and they're pretty words. It is very poetic, very poetic. If you like poetry, maybe this is the book for you. Very lyrical, very beautiful writing, and that's why I would definitely continue to read from this author. This has not put me off because I actually really enjoyed her writing style, and I know she wrote another book, and I can't remember the name of it, but I'll put it up here on the screen, that people say is, I guess, kind of similar, where it's like, I think it's her first adult novel or something that she wrote, and it's like lyrical, beautiful. But she also wrote The Wicked Deep, which is another young adult, I think maybe horror novel. This one did have some scary elements in it, but it was not actually scary. The woods are very atmospheric, of course. And I mean, if you want atmosphere and cold, if you want cold, frigid vibes, I mean, you got characters like practically freezing to death, then this would be the book for you. But let's talk about the two things I didn't like about this book, which are kind of the opposite things, but sort of the same thing. And it's the fact that she told you too much about the big reveal. It wasn't a reveal because you figured it out really early on. Like, she gave you, I mean, it was almost over the top clues. I guess she must have wanted you to figure it out because literally anyone could figure this out. You would, I said before, you would have to be literally like a 10-year-old or something not to figure out the big twist or early on, and you just keep reading because you think, well, this is either not going to be the twist because it's so obvious, or you kind of just wanted to see the twist played out. And so it does. It's the exact twist you expect. It's nothing new. But then at the very end, like the last like 20 pages, there's another twist, and it's a really stupid twist. It's like one of those, oh, it was all a dream kind of things, and it makes the whole thing null and void. I hate to spoil it. I mean, that doesn't really spoil it because just know that going into it. It's not a dream or anything like that. But the thing just comes out of nowhere with no real foreshadowing, whereas the other thing was literally almost told to us. So too much foreshadowing and then no foreshadowing of the other twist. So it just comes out of nowhere and is really stupid and just negates the entire book basically. So anyway, 3.5 stars mostly for atmosphere and vibes. So why did I spend the first 15 days of January not reading anything? Well, I did. I just DNF'd them. I first DNF'd, let's see, Exile, which is book 2 of the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I'd read Keeper of the Lost Cities last month, yeah, for the video about my husband bought me books because he bought me the first one. I'd actually requested it, and it was fine. It was not the Harry Potter or the Nevermore series like I really wanted. It was supposed to be middle grade and whimsical and fun, and it was not. The writing was not very good. There was nothing fun or whimsical about it, but the mystery is what kind of kept me going. However, once I started book 2, I realized it was really going to be kind of the same thing all over again. It was kind of the same mystery, the same problem, the same setup, and I was like, is it just gonna be the same thing again? So then I read some reviews online, and you know, there's like 8 or 9 of these books now or something, maybe even more. And everybody was saying that it's the same thing in every book. It's literally the same plot, the same setup, and the same mystery continues in every book. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna read all these books when I don't even really care that much. So I decided to DNF it, but I got pretty far. Well, I got 29%, and this is a very long book. So I did read, you know, I don't know, 150 or so pages probably at least. And I will not be continuing the series. Okay, then I really tried the next book. I read 59% of The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. So this is a sequel to The Poppy War, which I read in November, and I loved the first half of The Poppy War, gave it like 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing. It had such promise and potential. But then the second half of the book, there's a massive tonal shift, and it's a totally different thing than the first half of the book, and I did not really quite like the direction that it went in because I'm just not like a history person. I didn't care about like Chinese military, fantasy, history stuff. So I only gave the second half of the book 3 stars, which averaged to 4 overall. So I thought, okay, maybe it'll keep going and get better. But considering where it was going in the first book, I didn't think I was going to really enjoy this one. But I got to 59% before I realized that I just didn't care about anything that was happening. And apparently it's kind of suffers from second book syndrome, where there's not much really happening. It's more just a setup for the third book. And yes, I could have powered through to then read the third book, but I just don't have that kind of time for books that are mediocre. So I gave up. I might one day read a plot summary if I decide that I care. And finally, the book I DNF'd on, I believe, New Year's Eve, the last DNF of the year, was shocking to me because I'd read this author's other book earlier this year, or last year actually, and loved it. So I DNF'd Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I made it 37%, so a little over a third of the way. This was nothing like, I mean, it was in some ways reminiscent of House in the Cerulean Sea, but you should definitely read House in the Cerulean Sea, which I gave like 5 stars to. It was great, whimsical, fun. This one, not so much. Because it is set, so it tells you in the beginning that the character is dead, and it is set in this like weird kind of like purgatory. It's sort of still in the real world, and he's getting ready to move on to somewhere else, but it's a tea shop that he's stuck in, and so that's the whimsical kind of fun part of it. But because he's dead, there's only so many characters that he can interact with and talk to, and they're just not very interesting. Like, I don't know, they don't have, I know that they're supposed to be interesting, but I just don't care. And like, he has this relationship already with one of the characters that's just kind of almost like insta love kind of thing. The character's very unlikable and irredeemable. He's very much like Scrooge. He's literally a Scrooge. Where at the beginning he's like firing somebody even though they're like, oh, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, and he's like, oh, too bad, you're fired. And all he cares about is work. He's definitely like Scrooge. In fact, the whole thing reminded me of A Christmas Carol, the setup of it, because I think he's gonna go back eventually. I was led to believe it was mostly him going back and like seeing the things that he should have done in his life or something, but so far that had not happened, and I was over a third of the way through the book, and he was still just talking to somebody while he was in purgatory, and really nothing very interesting was happening, and I didn't care about the characters, the plot, or really anything, unfortunately. Even the setting, I thought, at least it could have been more whimsical with the tea shop or something, but it really wasn't. It wasn't super descriptive or anything. So anyway, I DNF'd it, and I will still try TJ Klune again. So those are all the books I read in December. It was a really good reading year for me. I read 77 books total, only 4 in, I think, like January, and only 4 in December, but a whole lot in between. So, all right, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them, and I will talk to you guys again later. Bye.